We are live with the community. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call. Today is November 27th. I am David Warren, Inquisitive, your humble host, and I am so excited because we have got an amazing trifecta of demos today. But first, let's take a look at what all we're going to talk about. We've got the latest updates on SharePoint Framework. We've got a number of community project updates like PNP.js, CLI for Microsoft 365, reasonable PNP SPFx controls, SharePoint Framework Toolkit, PNP Search Web Parts, new samples, so much to talk about today. And of course, then it's going to be everybody's favorite time, picture time with Together Mode. So get those fantastic faces ready and those cameras ready to go as well. And after that, we're going to have our three all-stars of the day. Mike is going to kick it off with Hello Python, kind regards, Power Automate Flow. So he's going to show how those two things can connect together, and it's going to be pretty awesome. Chris Kent is here. He's going to be talking about list formatting tips and tricks, specifically some really cool new technology around autofill columns. And then Hugo is going to round it out today, adding UI theme awareness, building AI integrated SPFx web parts. So lots of cool AI to talk about in that demo. But first, let's cover all the amazing resources that are available to each and every one of you. It starts with our Community Learning YouTube channel. This is a channel where things like this call and the demos from it are hosted, as well as a number of other ways that we share the technology between the community and Microsoft. So it's a great one-stop shop for all those cool videos. Definitely go like and subscribe and let everyone know how much you appreciate their efforts on those videos. We've got our LinkedIn group page for discussion, open source tooling. We've got our sample galleries, many of which we'll hear about today. Of course, there's only one URL you need to remember, maybe two, which is our ak.ms/community/home. You can also get there by going to community.ms, which is our fancy top-level domain. So check it out when you've got a moment. Easy to remember, easy to check out. And if you're here, it probably means you like community calls, and we appreciate you. So we've got plenty more. Our Tuesday weekly product updates with Microsoft speakers. This is on every Tuesday, Microsoft 365 and Power Platform, by those product managers and program managers that are working hard to create all the cool technology that we love and use every single day. Now, this is every Tuesday, but it is going to be on a break. We're on a break for the 16th of December until the 13th of January. Although we won't be dark completely, because during the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community calls, which you are on right now, those are happening every Thursday. In fact, today is a holiday in the States, but we're here because why? We are a global community, and we want to make sure that everyone is supported and that we show that community spirit. And of course, we've also got our Power Platform monthly call and Office add-ins. You can get access to all these calls at ak.ms/community/calls. You can also keep an eye out on the Meetup site, which provides the agenda for all upcoming calls each week. Now, as we look forward to next week, on the 2nd of December, we've got Itai going to be talking about latest updates on the Microsoft 365 Developer Program. Super excited for that. I know many are as well. And then the one and only Paolo is going to be back talking about an overview of Microsoft Copilot APIs coming off of the hot heels of Ignite. So we're going to see all that cool stuff. So check it out. Get it on your calendar. Now, as you're watching today, you may think, well, hey, I would love to present on this call. Am I welcome to do that? You betcha. Absolutely. We want you to present on this call, and don't overthink it. If you've got something cool to share that you're passionate about and you've learned, share it with others. You may think, who doesn't already know this? Plenty. So don't second guess it. Fill out the form, ak.ms/community/request/demo, and we will make sure to get in contact with you and get you on the schedule. And as you're watching all of these cool samples today, you're thinking, how do those things get into the interwebs? Well, it's by amazing folks like you, but it does use a little thing called GitHub, and that can be a little confusing. So this is why myself and Hugo Bernier and others like Emily Mancini and Louisa Fries have worked on creating Sharing is Caring. We're getting a couple of these sessions scheduled in December, so promise you those will be scheduled in the next few days, working around everybody's vacation so that everyone has time to relax and recharge. But we want to make sure that during this time, we've got all kinds of cool recognition opportunities. There is opportunity to learn if you're unfamiliar with Sharing or unfamiliar with GitHub. You can learn more at Sharing is Caring. It is hands-on, it is safe space, which means we do not record it, so you're free to ask any and all questions. But it does act as a contribution. Why is that important? Because our Credly recognition program is alive and well. Tons of super cool badges are available. It is that popular time of the season, so we've got that season of getting and a slice of samples. We've also got our Back to the Future themed badges that are available to you, and we've also got our new Home Alone and Elf theme badges. This is my community. I must contribute, and contributing is my favorite. So super, super cool. A lot of fun. We do like to have fun with these, but they are real and accredited badges that show that you are making a difference. So show them off to your clients, show them off to your managers, show them that you're making a difference in the community and being formally recognized for it. It's our way of giving back. It is absolutely no cost at all. We cover the cost. Just need you to opt in, and we'll track the work you're doing. Okay, let's get into some updates on the SharePoint framework with Vesa.
You mean me?
Yes.
So SharePoint Framework 122 release candidate came out last week, and we're looking into going GA with 122 next week. It is still the plan. Hopefully we don't find any last minute things. Obviously we don't want to go GA if we find any last minute things. So thank you for everybody who've been doing some testing and validating that things are working fine, but it is finally getting out. And the main idea there is that we're cleaning up all of the known security issues in the NPM audit, and then transitioning to Heft-based tool chain, which will modernize everything for future stuff, which is definitely in our plans. Now let's go to the following slide. What do I have here? Yes, we are growing. We are growing. Yes, so that's basically summarizes that slide. We are still growing. We actually did broke one magical number just last week on the usage, which is really cool. Let's go to the following slide. Again, 122 in December, 123 is then planned to be in February, March. 122 is not really containing any real new features, and that is by design so that we can actually reset the tool chain, all of that stuff, and then we're transitioning to open sourcing all of our solutions and open sourcing our CLI, transitioning away from the Yeoman generator, and there's a lot of other stuff in the pipeline as well during spring 2026. But that's a quick recap on there. Maybe one thing to call out, if you go one slide forward, something which is in the plan, this one. Thank you. Thank you, David. So one thing which is coming pretty soon actually is the developer toolbar, and this will eventually replace Workbench. So because again, idea here is that Workbench isn't really up to date, and it's really difficult for us to keep it up to date because the pages are evolving so fast. So we want to transition doing live debugging rather in the live dashboard pages and in the live pages, but we'll give you some level of tooling and all of that to make it super easy in future. But that's coming pretty soon actually. That might actually come before 123 because it doesn't have a dependency on it. But anyway, that's all from my side. Let's move on to the projects.
Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. Very cool. Lots of exciting stuff on the horizon. As you mentioned, we're going to talk about some open source projects. So we're going to begin with our Copilot prompt library. This is one of the easiest ways to get involved in the community and contribute. We've all been building these prompts and learning that love language with our LLMs. And so if you've got a useful, handy prompt, then share it. You'll get credit for that. You'll get a badge. It'll be awesome. And you could be the prompt of the week. Dun, 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 dun. So Tunnel this week has a prompt around really cool generating high resolution QR codes. Vesa had done this early in the week and generated one here. You can define the color. You can put in an image. So really cool way to give some style to that. And again, thank you, Tunnel, for that. It is super cool. We'll have the links available for you to check them out. All right, PNP.js, client-side libraries. Bo Cameron, tell us more.
Yes, good morning, David. So version 4.18 is going to be released next month. No updates. We're just doing documentation updates and some version updates there because we're working on version 5 still. So there is a project tab in the PNP.js repo if you want to see what we're working on. Most of it's kind of a maintenance release for version 5 and trying to clean up some things. But yeah, if you haven't used PNP.js, it's a client-side library to work with Microsoft Graph and SharePoint APIs. So you should definitely try it out. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Bo. Great work there on the team. Excellent stuff. Let's move on to CLI for Microsoft 365 with the one and only Gary.
Thanks, David. Yeah, so new beta release of CLI for Microsoft 365. This is version 11.2. Small release. We've got one new command for SharePoint Online. So if you want to get the version policy settings of a site, you can now do that. We've also had a new sample script submitted to our gallery. If you don't know about this, we have a gallery of community submitted scripts that use CLI for Microsoft 365 for all sorts of scenarios. In this case, the contribution is for listing all deprecated SharePoint list alerts across a tenant. So if you are trying to identify these alerts on your tenant, this script will do the job for you. So definitely take a look at our website and check that out. So if you want to try out the latest beta, you can install that from NPM and from Docker. Just use the @next tag. For all details of the updates and improvements in this release, go to aka.ms/CLI-M365/notes. And moving on. So Dev Proxy, we've not released this week. We were due to, but obviously with Thanksgiving, we've decided to move that to next week. We're planning to release a new beta because the next release is going to be a major version. We found an update that we need to release, which is going to be a breaking change. It's only small, so this is not a drastic change to go from V1 to V2, but we're making that decision to move to V2 just to make sure that we're making sure we keep with the semantic versioning, that you're going to need to check some of your scripts just to make sure that everything's working okay. But yeah, no updates at the moment, but check out for the announcements next week. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. Great work there as well. Next up is reusable SPFx control. So I know this is a favorite of many. We have released November 2020 on November 9th, 2025, 3.23 for the React controls, property controls 3.22. Don't reinvent the wheel. These allow you to integrate into your SharePoint framework React solutions, some really cool pre-built information and features. I know a number on this call have contributed to them, so really amazing stuff because of those contributions by all of our amazing contributors. So check it out if you've not already. All right, how about SharePoint Framework Toolkit? There's some updates there, huh, Adam?
Yeah, there are. So we have just had a new pre-release, 4.13.8. So this is like the third pre-release since we last time be on the call, so it was Thanksgiving, and we were thankfully coding. We had a few bug fixes, and one was the bug fix in the publish task. Now we can, SPFx Toolkit picks the correct chain comments operator, so we can have any kind of default terminal like CMD or Git bash or PowerShell, all of those will work. We now do additional check if you have Yeoman installed just before you click submit the scaffolding form. We improved the language models tools that support SharePoint list management. With more properties, now we can create a list using GitHub Copilot chat with SPFx Toolkit language model tools and already give it a property that's a hidden list, so like a config list, or you can disable commenting or disable removing this list, and so on and so forth. And we are planning a new minor release in 2 weeks, just before the SPFx 1.22 will go GA. Just a few days later, we're going to do a minor GA of our SPFx Toolkit, and it will bring all of the enhancements towards the 1.22. So it will bring have tasks to the tasks view, and of course the upgrade and the setup, everything aligned to the latest version of SPFx to keep you smooth up and running with the latest version. Okay, happy coding, everybody, and back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. Hey, by the way, I'm really excited about that minor release because kids really need to get involved. Oh, you meant minor version. Yeah, never mind. This is awkward. All right, everybody, let's go over to Casper, the friendly contributor, and talk about PNP Modern Search.
Thank you, David. But we don't have any new release this week, but we have a request. If there's anybody out there who would like to join and contribute to the project, we will really appreciate that, because we have a lot of open issues, but most of the issues is actually enhancements. And we have limited capacity with a group that is currently working on this project. So if you would like to join, you can join just by updating the documentation. You can do SPFx. You can do any kind of contributions that you are able to, and you can grow in it as well. I started doing documentation, and now I'm fiddling with the SPFx, which is kind of dangerous because I don't know what I'm doing, sort of. So please join us, and if you have the ability, we would welcome you very much. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Casper. And let's move into our SPF examples, and we'll cover web parts and extensions with Hugo Bernier.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, do you feel like learning how to build SPFx web parts and extensions, and you have some time over the holidays?
I do.
Know about you. Well, perfect.
Thought this was an infomercial. Sorry.
Rhetorical question, Dave.
Oh, dang it.
So if you're like me, I learned by example. Perfect. Thank you. Everyone's participating. So we have repositories where you can actually get web parts samples and extension samples, and these are the latest ones. We got the site content web part, the file type distribution web part, and the hub site navigator web part by Harminder Sethi. We have the quick links hierarchy, the React UI editor by Saisiva Rambandaru, and then the group members web part,
the quick by Nico, the Quick Links Pro by Sai Siva Rambandaru, and the SharePoint Custom Actions Manager by Nico. We have a few more pull requests to process, but I will be working on them very soon. If you want to contribute, you can go to aka.ms /SPFx-web parts, and you can get all the samples by going to aka.ms/community/samples. Back to you, David.
Awesome, Hugo. Thank you. And we also have Aces. Anoop and Derek are working hard on managing that repo. There are no new samples right now, but they are ready and willing and waiting for your sample. So go check those out. Got a dedicated badge there for you, as well as does Hugo's web parts and extensions. So definitely go contribute and be on the lookout for those badges soon. Well, what time is it? It is everyone's favorite time, which is picture time. So get those cameras turned on. We have under 50 people in the call today, so I wonder if we can get all 50 on the together mode. That would be awesome. All right, while you all get that turned on, we are just about on time. So I'm going to get Camtasia fired up here and ready to go. I see some familiar friends there. Thank you all for joining today. This is awesome. We'll give it just another second. I know those cameras can sometimes take a second. Teams, there's Hugo, there's Vesa. All right, there's a man named Kent who looks very sinister with his very real mustache. And oh, wow, look at that. He had fireworks coming off. Okay, let's get this going and let's begin with the countdown. Let's go 3, 2, 1. Great to see you all. Again, thank you for joining. Thank you for coming to these community calls. They are only possible because of all the amazing work that you're doing within the community. So we really appreciate all the hard work. Great to see you all today. Really, really thank you. Cannot thank you enough. All right, let's get our show back on the road. We're going to move in with our we're not going to move in together. We're going to move on to our amazing presenters of the day. Mike is here. He's going to kick us off with Hello Python, kind regards, Power Automate Flow. So, Mike, if you'd like to take over the screen, the show is yours, my friend.
Well, I had somebody in the office, I don't know, 6 months ago, sent in a ticket and said, hey, can Power Automate Flow, can it kick off a Python script? Well, I had several people jump on the chat and were saying, no, you can't do it, or it's very difficult to do it. And I took that challenge and I said, no, I don't think it's as difficult as people think. So what I'm going to show you today is that Power Automate can actually trigger a Python script, and just the opposite, Python can trigger Power Automate Flow. So you're going to get these slides afterwards. We won't have to go into this too much, but going to show, like I say, the flow to the Python automation, and then a Python back to flow. Why would you want to do this? One of the things I can think of right off the top of my head is if you've ever worked with CSVs or Excel files trying to manipulate stuff with just a flow. Of course, you can do it. You can dig it. It can get pretty hairy with all the different steps you have to use. But Python excels at working with CSVs and Excel files. So, you can trigger whatever you need to with your flow, and then you can have Python do all the heavy lifting in the background. Another thing I use, you can have Python trigger a flow that communicates with Dataverse. So, then grab data out of Dataverse and do a lot of cool things with the Python side, just because now you have the data. And it's just a simple, it's basically just showing Python script can communicate with Power Automate Flow. There's the bidirectional arrow. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is how Flow can trigger Python. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the flow, and what it's going to do is I'm going to trigger it by sending an email using when an email is received trigger in a Power Automate Flow. It's going to grab the body out of that and then push it to a OneDrive folder that Python, coincidentally, I've got it wired so that it's watching for arrival of a file. And demo time.
You're telling me a Power Automate Flow can trigger a Python script?
Absolutely. Watch this. And processed.
Well, I'll be. That actually worked.
Like clockwork.
All right, color me convinced. You're telling me a power...
Okay, so we're gonna actually go into the flow and everything, but this is all that it's doing. So again, I mentioned that when a new email arrives, that's the trigger. I've got a specific subject filter there. That's why, if you've used, I'm sure some of you have used Power Automate flows. This will limit what actually triggers it based on that subject filter. I'm grabbing the body of the email from the action above, and then because that has all the HTML tags in it, I strip it out using the action HTML to text, and then I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to actually create a file, just a text file that has the body of that email in there. So here's the email I'm actually going to send. I'm going to send it now. Well, let me actually show you the Python script so that you can see that some of this it's not all magic. There's stuff wired to it, not smoke and mirrors. Put that over here. You see down here in the bottom, there's nothing there. I'm going to go ahead and send that email. We can get that back out of the way. It'll take it a few moments. We can watch the flow run maybe after, see how fast this happens. But this is Python tkinter app that I put together yesterday, just so that we can, for this demo. And you see it's polling down here. No jokes yet. Hasn't seen any yet. Go check the flow. Yeah, so we don't have to see that. It's watching for that. It saw that that email came in. It created there's the body of that. It converted it just to the text portion. So it's just a joke. That was what was in the email, and then it's created the file over in a particular OneDrive location, and I'm not actually seeing it over there. So that's interesting, showing that it created it.
We see the results. We believe you. We do.
Yeah. So I'll move on to the next section. So when it runs successfully, it looks like this. So the Python script, it actually creates like a pre-joke, and then this is what actually came over through the email, and then I have a final joke just to kind of keep things light. Okay, so next, so that was the flow triggering Python. Now we're going to have a Python trigger the flow, hopefully a lot smoother than before. So we're going to run a Python script. The flow is going to be triggered, and then
run.
Wait, are those flow icons?
Mm-hmm. Straight from Python.
You can't trigger our automation with a script.
Well, watch me.
Okay, that's actually happening.
Told you, flows love snakes.
Okay, so we'll go take a look at that code real quick. So you use when an HTTP request is received, and one of the things that the Python script is going to pass in is going to pass in an email address, and it's going to pass in a name, an email address, and a message, and then it'll send an email based on. But I'm going to be triggering that with the Python script. So the Python script is this one. Very, very simple. We'll run that. I'm using a library called Faker that it fills in, makes up a name. I am going to need to use a real email address so that we can see the email address, or see it actually do this. And now flow triggered successfully. We go back over here. There we go. It did trigger it. And come back in here and take a look at what it received. It received that name. I don't know if you remember. We can go back and look, but Matthew Schaefer sent it to that, and it sent the message. And if we were to look at my email, There it is. So in that case, we kicked it off with the Python script, and it came through the flow, and then that's the output for that. So I mean, that's just a very simple example. Another example I have is I'm actually going to have it. I'm going to kick off the Python script. It's going to pass in a joke keyword, a keyword for a type of joke. And then it's going to actually go into my Dataverse and match that contain. This is where I've got that contains. It's going to look for that keyword. And then if it finds it, it's going to create a nice HTML formatted email showing missing something here. Put those in here. Because I wanted in the email, I wanted to actually show what keyword was passed in. We'll go back to the Python script and kick that one off. I know for a fact I have a joke about scarecrows, so I can send that. Need to also, again, give it an email address because this is going to send an email with that, with the joke, or any jokes that matches that. Okay, go back, take a look at the actual run. This one does take a few minutes because there's a lot. It's doing the Dataverse lookup. We'll know it's done when that. But you can see that it did trigger it. That Python, we ran the Python script, and that flow is actually running right now. So we can see. We'll be able to see. I passed in the keyword scarecrow. Python communicated, passed it in. It's doing the lookup now, and when it finishes, if it finds any jokes that have keyword scarecrow in it, yeah, so now it finally finished. And here's, let me drag the email, and here's the email. So, scarecrow didn't have to be just it found that it looks in the setup column. Does the match on the setup column. So it finds scarecrows. You notice it's not case sensitive. So I typed scarecrow, but it found lowercase scarecrow in there, and then there you are with that. So some other examples, and I've used it for this is you can do a lot more, get a lot more information out of Dataverse. I mean, that was kind of just a silly example, but you can have it go and get all kinds of data with Dataverse, and then imagine your flow does something with the data that it has in Dataverse, and needs to do some more manipulation with the Python. Then with Python script, then you can churn all of that, let all that heavy processing happen with Python, and then Python also has the capability at the end. It could send an email, if you were going to email some stakeholders with this complicated report that you kicked off with Python, got all the data out of the flow, out of the Dataverse table from Power Platform, and then did all some backend processing more with the Python, and then sent a final report to your stakeholders also with Python. That was just a code snippet. I wanted to include this so when you have the slides, you can play around with this yourself if you want. That was the one that we just did. One of the things that you should point out is when you're using that trigger for those flows, you want to build some client secrets and client ID in your Azure AD. What do they call it? Intra now, but you need to make sure that you handle all of that, because you don't want to expose too much in the actual flow itself. And then also when you're creating the Python script, use environment variables, because some of the things that makes this run is you have to pass it in client ID, secret ID, tenant ID, things like that. But if you put those environment variables, then you could actually then share your Python code, and no one could still, they could see how it works, but you wouldn't have exposed any of your your secret IDs or anything like that. Then let's see. Yeah, that was that. Lessons learned, same thing. Don't embed authentication in flow trigger definitions. You add try catch blocks on both sides, not only in Python, but you can have try catch over on your the concept of using scopes, using try catch except in your flows. Python file watchers, keep JSONs clean, and then I recommend you start out small, just like my very first example. I'm just doing something very small, sending in a few things and seeing it work, and then you can continue to build on that. And that's it. I appreciate it. Just got a little concluding video. This is what I should have played when it was failing, when the other part was failing.
Whoa, that's actually working?
Triggered straight from Python. Smooth as silk.
And thank you.
Awesome, Mike. Very, very cool. You might even say it was super suited the Python, the snap. Anyways, yeah, awesome stuff. Really appreciate you sharing. Shows how the different technologies can work together. So thank you for coming to the community and sharing that passion with us. All right, we are going to move on to Chris Kint, Warrior Horse Whisper. He's going to talk to us about list formatting tips and tricks, specifically with autofill columns. So this is super, super cool. Chris, feel free to take on over.
All right, here we go. Let's take a look here. So we're heading over. It is Thanksgiving, so we're heading over to our traditional gobble site full of turkeys. And, of course, the turkeys are always interested in getting more out of their product. And they heard a rumor that autofill columns are free until December sometime here. So they decided to use them for today's demo. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to need is a document library. So let's create a new document library. All right, we'll just create a blank one. We're going to call this gobble, naturally. Oh, that already exists. Of course it does. Gobble. Gobbly. Perfect. That won't get confusing. Perfect. All right, so we create that. Now we've got a new document library here. And I can, of course, upload a document or whatever I wanted here, but I'm going to just add a column to show off our autofill, right? So if I have a text column, and I hit next, you'll see I've got this autofill option. How did I get this? So I'm not going to go over all the steps, but if you're in your admin center, if you go down to setup here, and then you scroll down eventually down to the billing and licenses section, you can activate your pay-as-you-go services so that they can find a way to make you pay. And then after you've done that, of course, you can show all here. And if you're coming down to your settings, your org settings, you've got a pay-as-you-go services down here. And when you click that, you can see that I've got mine set up here already with my Azure subscription behind the scenes. Just using my Visual Studio one because it's my dev tenant here. And then I've got various settings here of what all that means. And here's autofill columns. Now, by default, that's going to be turned on for your whole tenant, right? So that's great. But if you want to just control exactly where that happens, right, you're trying it out here, you can put in selected sites. That's how I got it. Wow! There'll be some links at the end for that. Okay. So what do we do with that, right? So the way autofill columns work is we're going to upload a document. The AI is going to look at that document, and then I'm going to give it a prompt, and it's going to answer that prompt for me and fill out a column with it. So that's exciting. So let's just call this turkey because it is Thanksgiving here in the U.S., of course. So we'll call ourselves a turkey here. Well, we'll call ourselves a turkey. We'll say on. Now, for single line of text and multi-line of text, it'll usually generate a prompt here. It may come up here in a minute. It's going to think about it. Of course, we don't have any documents, so that's part of the problem. So let's actually add a document before we do that. Let me drag a document over here. Where's my? There we go. We're just going to drag this manual of how to do strapless grenades. That's important. All right, strapless grenade launcher for horses, naturally. All right, now let's add that column after all. So now we've got a test document. Now when we hit autofill on our turkey column, so the name of the column will be used in generating part of this. You can see the column name is automatically utilized as context information. Right, but now we could ask a prompt here, right? So it's suggested one here, extract engine information about turkey mentioned in the document, because it just assumes I want to know about turkeys because I named the column turkey. Well, I don't. What a terrible idea. All right, instead we're going to say, what is a fun occupation of some, I don't know why I'm using that voice, of someone who would like to read this document, right? Now, if we were to test that, right, it'll think about it. It's going to look at this document uploaded. A fun occupation could be military technology enthusiasts, right? Because it is about strapless grenade launchers, but that's not actually what I want it to output. So I can direct it. So I've asked it this question, but now I can go further, right? I can tell it to respond with, or I can say only respond with, because if I say just respond with, it'll tell me about the occupation, then it'll answer this next question. So I'm going to say only respond with an image generation prompt of a turkey dressed as this occupation. Wow. So let's test that. So now it's going to take a look at that again and just kind of say, oh, there'll be a news reporter apparently. Ah, sure, that's good enough, right? So that is what we're going to use here. So when we save this, now we get this turkey column, and it'll look at it and it'll just autofill for us. In fact, let's go ahead and drag another couple of documents over here just so we've got them in there. All right, so let's grab, I don't know why not. Let's grab our basketballs and stuff. Classic. All right, so then we'll take our basketballs. Let's add a dinosaur coloring book. Why not? That sounds exciting. Right? And so eventually these things will be updated with turkeys, right? So now we can always take a look at what's happening there. So we could say autofill columns, view recent activity. I have no activity apparently, but we'll give that a moment here. We'll just refresh that just to be certain. Oh, come on now. The other thing you can always do is you can come into autofill columns and you can say autofill if you don't think it's been triggered for some reason, which, you know, we'll see. We'll give it a moment here. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and create a small format because this just becomes a text column, right? So all that happens in the background, there's various columns. There we go. Various columns that are supported, right? But this is a column. I can apply formatting to it. So that's exciting. I can reference it in other formats, right? Just for reference, we're going to go ahead and put a quick little format on here just temporarily so that we can see what that value is while we're messing with it. So I'm just going to add a quick little format where I'm going to say, hey, let's make it a div. All right, we're going to say it's a div, and we're going to say our text content is just the value of the turkey column, right? That way, we can see it no matter what we do with this column over here. All right, let's just save that. We'll remove that later. Great. So let's see. How's our autofill happening here? Do my recent activity. Just the one here so far. Well, we'll give it a moment to see if it comes up with these other ones. But in the meantime, we've got a column to work with here. So let's go ahead and format this guy. So what we want to do is we want to represent when this thing is loading, right? Like these, right? So it makes it obvious that this is something's coming here. We're just waiting on it. So what we can do is we can start with a lovely format here. I'm going to turn on my enhanced formatter just so I can see it auto apply as we're going. All right, so that is an extension, right? We've mentioned it a number of times on here. This is the SP formatter. It is free from Microsoft Edge and Chrome, and it just makes it so you can type things here, work in VS Code, all sorts of fancy things, right? In our case, we're just going to say type div, and we're going to restore the curly brace we just killed. There we go, right? And then we're going to say our style for this guy, so we can have some styles. There we go. We're going to put a width and a height. We're going to fix these widths and heights, and it'll make more sense why we're doing that in a little bit. But I'm just going to make a big box that's 128 by 128 pixels. All right, so there we go, 128 pixels, boom. So now I have a box there. Wowee. All right, and then we're going to come down here. And what I like to do is I like to create children. That's a funny sentence. I mean, I did do that. I've got 3. All right, here we go. All right, so now we're going to create some children in here. Let's put a div, right? And so inside this div, we're going to also have more children. We love our children. All right, what we're doing is we're creating a little loading type screen, right, that just indicates that we're loading here. Let's fix that. That looks terrible. Let's add a little comma on the end there. We can always say format document. It didn't work. That's all right. Oh, it's because I'm here. Let's give ourselves a little space here. What are we doing? Anybody see? Where's my cursor? Oh, well, I guess we're not going to get into space. Turn that off. Maybe we get space that way. Nope. All right. Well, that's all right. We'll just do it ourselves. We'll do it live. Perfect. Okay, so I add a div here. And now we're finally going to add something that'll be visually, available. Attributes. There we go. There we go. Put that guy there. We're going to say an icon name. Now I want an icon that, there's a bunch listed here, but I want one for loading. So if I head over to a site like Flycon, right, I can just search for something like if I want loading, I'll say load. There's one. There's a couple of them. This one looks good. Progress ring dots. I'm just going to copy the name of that. There we go. And some icon name is progress ring dots. There we go. I've got a very tiny little progress ring dots there. Wowee. Right, and let's make that a little bigger by applying one of our standard classes to it. So let's say MS font size XXL. Perfect. There you go. That's beautiful. All right, and then we'll add another child in here for the text. All right, so we'll say boop doop. We'll say Elm type is another div because I love the divs. Perfect. All right, and then we'll just say text content on this guy is going to be gobble because it's a turkey site. You could also put loading. You can put all sorts of things, right? Now we can make that look a little prettier. I'm just going to copy and paste this so that I don't type all of these styles for you. Right up here, we'll create a little style element. All right, and then we're going to apply just some styles to make it a flexbox display so that it aligns everything nicely. There we go. Perfect. So by doing that, right, we've got display of flex. We've got our flex directions column, and we're lining items in the center. That looks lovely, right? So now it just says gobble while it's loading. I'm going to save that and see if I can refresh this, see if we can make that a little bigger. There we go. All right, column settings. Let's format this column. Okay. So now we've got this kind of background element, right, that sits here. We haven't gotten these filled out for whatever reason. I'm just going to go ahead and ask them to fill out while we're doing it. It's probably because I tested with these exact documents before. So very still. Oh, several hours. Well, hold on, everybody. Sorry, Hugo. That's just how it's going to be. Now that is true, right? If you're processing a lot of these can take a long time. They get added to a queue, right? You can also view your autofill activity here. I found they generally work very quickly, so this is upsetting, but we'll see how that goes. Okay. Oh, there we go. A turkey dressed as a paleontologist. Perfect. So we've got a little image generation prompt here. Now, what are we going to do with that? So now we've got ourselves a loading type icon here. We want to replace that with a value that's based off of the value inside turkey. So I've got a lovely thing we're going to do where we're going to put an image over it. So let's just go ahead and create that image element down here. So we're in our second child. We're in the main div here. We got children. Here's the first one. That's our whole loading thing. All right, let's add another child here. And this will be our image. Right, so we're just going to say Elm type of image. All right, there we go. And we're going to say, the attributes of that. Ooh, attributes. There we go. Right, where we can say the source, for instance. That's going to be where that image comes from. Right, and then we're going to type in something there, and then we can put a title. Right, so we're just going to put a title. That'll put our tooltip of @current field. Right. So there we go. Now it's a broken image because I didn't actually specify anything, right? But you can see that now we've got that prompt showing up as the title, and the broken image shows that prompt. Okay. So if we wanted to grab, say, image, just so we can have a placeholder. I got my Teams thing doing here. There we go. Let's go to our, let's go a little further down. The hidden Teams sharing things got me. Okay, there we go. So I've got this dummyimage.com, just lets you create a quick dummy image you can link to. So I can copy the link to that. You can configure it. Mine says, wowee, as should yours, of course. All right, and we'll paste that in there just so we can get this positioned the way we want it. There we go. Oh, well, that's not going to work because I have not approved dummyimage.com. So you may be surprised to see that images hot linked here don't come over, right? In fact, they'll get blocked, and if we were to inspect this image, right, if we were to do something like, press F12 or, whatever the actual command is, and then we were to inspect that element right there, and we took a look at our image, we'll actually see, why did it come over? Because it's an untrusted source. We can't actually hot link from dummy image or anywhere else. Why? I will show you how to fix that in just a moment. Worry not. Right, but that's the idea. We can position an image on there, or we could just grab an image off our site. For now, we're going to skip that. And I'm going to show you something else we could do, right? So let's just go ahead and fix this element up. I'm going to go ahead and replace all of this by taking a look over here at this website here. This is called pollinations.ai. It is free, and you don't even have to have an API key. You don't have to sign up. You can, and I'll show you there's a benefit to it. but it's free. And what it does is it generates images using AI, because we all need more AI slop in our SharePoint libraries, naturally, right? So kill the tree, whatever you got to do, get this working, right? So if we take a look at the documentation for this, you can see what they've got is this image generation API that lets you generate an image off of a URL. Ooh, right? So you put the image and then you put your prompt right after it, right? So in this case, we'll just put it on a new line. We'll say, turkey driving a tank. Naturally, that's what we would want, right? So that would be our prompt. And then you can see there's other options here as well that we could change around. So let's add some things. So we would add that with a question mark, right, to make this a query string. Just for our first one, we're going to say width equals 128. And we're going to say, then we put an ampersand, right, when we want to add another one, and height equals 128 as well. Right, and then we could do things like setting enhance, and enhance, this like CSI, enhance, all right, equals true. All that really does is it makes the thing a little better, right? The prompt, if the prompt isn't great, it's going to improve it and make it fancier, right? We can also do things like if you've signed up for a account like I have, you can say no logo equals true, and I'll show you how it understands who I am in just a moment. And then I'm going to say and private equals true. And the only thing that does is it keeps my images from showing up in their little live feed of like, hey, look, people generated these images. Now, all I do is I'm going to combine all of that into one beautiful link. I just deleted my question mark. There we go. Boom. Now I've got ourselves a beautiful link. And if I copy that and I come up here, all right, I should be able to just paste that in here. And let's see what happens, right? Let's see if we get ourselves an image generated in just a moment here. So while that is loading, we'll take a look at the auth side of things as well. So if you sign up, I had to sign up with my GitHub account. It's free, but it allows you to then specify a refer a domain. And in this case, I can specify the Chriskent, which is my tenant, right? When I specify that domain, then it gives me, instead of every 15 seconds, I can generate these every 5 seconds. Wow! And it also lets me do things like not have a logo on there, which actually, now I just realized I put that on here. That might be a bit of a problem, but we will see. All right, while that's doing that, I'll just give you an example that I generated before. Look, here we go. There's a tiny turkey wearing lederhosen. Wow, based off of the URL. So that's pretty cool that we can do that, and we can use that in our format, right? And in fact, we can even take advantage of another piece here. You'll notice they have this idea of a seed, where we can make sure that we get the same image every time. Well, I'm not sure that's a turkey drone. It's a tank from Turkey. That actually makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. Woo! Hilarious. All right. But that's the idea, right? So we can add a seed and make that exactly what we want. All right. So using that information, let's head on back over here to our Gobble library, and let's enhance once more. So I'm just going to copy this over, and we'll take a look at this format once I've applied it. There we go. So the primary difference here now is I've made the top element, right, hide the overflow. I've given it some border radius and a position of relative, which is important because down here in the image, I've positioned that absolutely, right? And the other thing I've said is if it does not have, the value yet in Turkey, don't show it, right? Otherwise, show it. But again, we still have this problem where image.pollinations.ai is not allowed. So let's just grab that guy. Copy that, and then we're going to save this, which I gotta do that. There we go. Save, just so we don't lose it. There we go. In fact, let's go ahead and grab a couple of the documents while we're waiting here, just for fun. Let's grab laser eyeballs, throw that in there, and reptile tags, which I think will take a long time. It's a 90 megabyte file, so it should take a while just to even upload, let alone process, right? And then, of course, we can take something like a silly story. Throw that in there too. Okay, so while that's doing that, I'll show you how to fix this issue. All right, so some of you might have even guessed. All right, but let's see. If we go over to our site information to get to our site settings. Yeah, that's fine. I'm sure it's all fine. We're going to go down to our HTML field security under our site collection administration. Now this, you'll see here, it's all about the external iframes, and that's true, but it also affects where you can hot link images from inside your format. So we just have to add our domain here. Now, always trust a guy on the internet telling you to add a domain to your. It's totally fine. Just trust it. It has AI on the end. How could it be bad? Anyway, take a look. This is the dev site. Yeah, take it all with a grain of salt. It is Thanksgiving after all. Okay, so imagepollination.ai added in there. And so now we're hit OK, and that should save that. Now if we head back to our, there's our site contents. So we look for our Gabali document library. There we go. We'll see if we get that image loaded here. So it's thinking about it. So the first time it loads, it'll take just a moment. And while it's doing that, let me show you one more thing inside that format. It's generating those images for us. All right. We see that I have thrown on here the seed equals, and I've put a number on the modified date. So that means that the images will not get regenerated until you modify this item, right? So it should be able to pull back the same image by using that same seed, and you'll start to see these things come in. So that's pretty cool. So you can see this one hasn't shown up because we haven't actually finished this one. This one, I'm not sure, it hasn't generated that image yet. But that's pretty cool, right? So the idea here is we can use our autofill columns, and we can combine those with some pretty fancy techniques from our formatting and get all sorts of exciting things from that. Let me remove that because that's silly to have that on there. Okay, there we go. But you can see, oh, there we go. They start to pile in, and you'll even see that when I refresh, they should still be there. Yeah, there they are. Perfect. Wowee! That's it for me. All right, back over to you, David.
All right, super cool, Chris. Very cool use of technologies and showing how they can be used together. Now we're going to go a little long today, friends, because Hugo has worked very hard on adding UI theme awareness, building AI integrated SPFx web parts. So we're going to give him his full time. Hugo, if you'd like to take over the screen, and we'll share all the links out in the YouTube description as well for those that are watching on demand. Check it out.
All right, so this is part of a series where we're trying to build a web part that allows you to build adaptive cards, but we're imbuing AI power into it. And these web parts are designed to have all the cool features that a perfect web part should have. Let's talk about, oh, nope, wrong thing. There you go. All right, so we've already built the web part. We've built the custom property pane. And now what we are doing is we're going to show you how to provide UI theme awareness. What do we mean by that? Well, let's show you a demo. All right, so this is the good old adaptive card web part that we built. We're not going to spend too much time on the adaptive card today. But the one thing that I should highlight is you'll notice that we don't really have any concept of colors really in the adaptive card, right? We have some, for example, somewhere we got some buttons, like here we have actions, but we're not ever specifying what color these actions are or anything like that, because that is provided by the adaptive card. The whole technology of adaptive card is it adapts to the environment that it's in. But one of the things that you need to do is to tell it where to get the colors, where to get the fonts, and things like that. So this exact same web part that I did here, and by the way, this is a picture of Bo dressed as a turkey, just to make it Thanksgiving-y. So if I look at this web part in another site with a different theme, you'll notice that immediately the web part adapts. And if I go through different themes here, you'll see that they adapt automatically. Now, this is cool for themes where all the web parts on the page are changing colors. But what if I want to create a section and I want to change the colors of a section? So for example, let's take this section here. Let's change the settings of that section. And let's say, actually, no, this section is going to be neutral shading, going to use soft shading, or is going to use strong shading. You'll notice that the colors of the text is changing to increase the legibility, as well as the colors of the buttons and things like that. That's actually provided by the section color. But wait, if you order now, we can use fancy backgrounds like these ones here. Now, the adaptive cards don't know how to deal with that. So how do we tell it how to deal with these changing colors? Well, let's move on. So first of all, let's talk about themes, right? Themes is the ability to have different color sets for the exact same look and feel, but just different colors. You can actually find in your CSS, instead of hard coding a color like this, where you can say the button background color is this, whatever color this is, you can actually say, no, I actually have a theme color that I can use, and it's the primary color, and you can even specify a default theme. That's built in within your SharePoint web parts and your SharePoint pages. You can actually go to the Microsoft documentation to get the list of theme colors that are available, and there's quite a few, as you can see. We're not going to go through all of them now. Now, there's another thing that you can use. If you want to understand how these theme colors work, you can actually go to the theme designer, which allows you to actually import a theme from an existing theme. Then you can actually specify the primary colors, text colors, and background colors, and it will help you preview what those colors are going to look like. And then at the bottom, it'll actually show you all your theme slots that are available for the various themes. One being the fabric palette slots, which shows you all different colors. But another thing that will show you is semantic slots. And semantic slots, semantic color is basically a color that shows it's the meaning of a color. So for example, in the semantic slots here, we have our default colors with things like the background and things like that. It's not telling us a weird color name like neutral or something like that. It's actually telling us what if I applied this color to the body, what would it look like? And so you get something like this, where you get different semantic slots with the different themes and the different colors applied to different things. Now, those semantic colors also apply to individual elements. So you have different colors for links, for example, for buttons, and various other things like inputs, lists, and things like that. Now, that applies to everything that's on the page. But if you actually specify a section with different theme colors or different backgrounds, the theme color is not applied to that individual web part. It's actually applied to all the web parts on the page, but the semantic color for the section is applied to the web parts within that section. How do we do that with code? Let's show you. Oops. All right, so this is the first thing you do in your web part manifest is you actually tell it that you want to support theme variants. That's what's going to help SharePoint know that it should notify the web parts when the theme are changing or the sections are changing. Next thing you need to do, I know it looks like a lot of code, is you should capture at least your theme provider and probably your theme variant, so you'll be using it a little later. By default, you have one that detects whether the web part is in dark theme or not. You can use that. I just didn't remove it in my code. And then when you initialize the web part, you want to capture the theme provider. And you want to basically store that somewhere. And you want to capture the theme variant. So again, the various flavors of that theme that are applied for that particular section. And then you want to use an event handler that says if the theme has changed, you'll get the current theme that's been applied. And then you just want to skip doing anything if you didn't get a theme. And then you want to query things like, is it a dark theme? What are the semantic colors for this theme? And there you go. And then you can do things like, in this case, I'm actually creating CSS variables for the various semantic colors that I want. But that's boring. Let's move on to the next part here. All right. one of the things that I forgot when I first grabbed the screenshot here is that you're supposed to you should probably store the theme variant so that you can refer to it a little later. Now, when you render your web part, you want to make sure that you're passing all the information about the theme, including the theme variant here, because the other components, when they will receive that theme variant, they'll be able to adapt. Next thing you can do is in your CSS or your SCSS. This is one of the things that I will do is I'll import the references.scss, which has predefined variables, SAS variables, that have all those cool theme colors. So you don't have to worry about the fancy square brackets, theme equals blah, blah, blah. It's actually provided to us as a SAS variable. For example, the neutral color, neutral primary, and so on and so forth. Now, what I'm also doing is I'm defining SAS variables or CSS variables for the semantic colors that I will receive from that background. And I'm not going to go through them because there's a bazillion of them. But what it does is it actually sends all this information to the CSS. Now, here's the problem. Let's look at this web part here. When I render a web part, it actually creates a section for that web part. And because I've made my web part, I've called my web part builder, it defines the class as web part builder. But then it adds a weird thing. It adds an underscore and then some random text. Why is that? Well, that's because if you have the same web part on the page and each web part is in a different section, you want the web part to have different CSS classes. You don't want, dropping one web part on the page overrides all the styles of everybody else. Now, I've named my class for the adaptive card viewer. I've named it custom adaptive card viewer. Yeah, I know I was being really original, but let's look at what happens again when I drop a component. So not just a web part, but a component within that web part. It also gets its own CSS class name, and because I specified it, but it also appends random stuff here. And again, that's to make sure that every adaptive card viewer component on the page, even if I had multiple on the same web part, are uniquely styled and they don't override each other. Because imagine if you dropped one web part that had a color and then you dropped another web part somewhere on the page and all of a sudden it overrode all the changes, all the colors. That's not good. Now here's the problem though. When I embed the adaptive card viewer, it actually renders, this is a control that's built by Microsoft, right? It renders its own container and it provides its own CSS classes. And you'll notice that they don't have suffixes. They're not made unique. So in theory, if I drop the same component on the page and I overrode those styles, I would actually override every component in the page equally. That's not good. And you'll see there's a few more things like that, the text block and the horizontal separator. But here's what I did. I do have a custom adaptive card viewer class, but what I can do is I can actually say everything that's inside of my custom adaptive card viewer web part, I want to override the global scope of these individual classes. And so what that means is it's not going to randomize the class names. It's going to apply the styles here. And the cool thing about that is when I specify the individual class like that, because they're within my web part, they will actually adopt those fancy styles, even if I have multiple copies of that web part in multiple sections. Now, here's the other problem, is that adaptive cards are trying to be friendly, and they try to actually specify the styles directly on the component, on the element. they're not using CSS classes for a lot of things. So you'll see here, it's overriding the font weight, the color, and things like that. So how do we deal with that? And again, you might have the same issue with your own components or third-party components. So one of the things that I do is I actually, when it's time to render the component, I merge something called the host configuration. That's specific to adaptive cards, but I take the default host configurations, and then I actually look to see if I have styles and default styles, and then I get the container styles, and I get all those variables, all those theme variants and things like that, and I apply them one by one to the individual styles that adaptive cards has. Now, there's hundreds of styles here, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but that's a technique that I use to make sure that when I change things, it is able to adapt to that. And then all I need to do is when I render the adaptive card, I get that host configuration and I pass it to my adaptive card rendering. So what are the key takeaways here? Use themes in your CSS, right? You can actually use the theme variables or the Sass variables to do that. Make sure that your web parts are theme aware, not just based on the page theme, but the section, the background of that section as well. If you're going to use global because you can't change the class name or CSS class names, just use it with caution, right? Make sure that you scope your global CSS classes within your individual web parts. And probably more importantly, always test your web parts by having more than one on a page. All right, so that was our UI theme awareness. Next time, we will talk about actually using AI within our layout creation to make our web parts fancy. That's it for me. For more information, use the links here. And back to you, David.
Awesome stuff, Hugo. Very, very cool. We'll get those links shared in the YouTube description as well, everybody who are watching on demand. So thank you to all of our presenters today, Mike, Chris, and Hugo. Amazing opportunities to learn together today. Really cool features and functionality that we can all put into play and all part of the community which is open source. So all these things are available for each and every one of us to take advantage of. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great, great job. All right, if you'd like to provide some feedback, we would love to hear it. Things are going well, we'd love to hear that too. So love to hear good news, love to hear ways that we could improve, so don't hesitate to let us know, ak.ms/community/calls/feedback. And if you'd like to become part of the community in the Discord server, you are more than welcome. We are at almost 3,000 members, if not already there. So please don't hesitate. This is a great one-stop shop to be able to do all that in. You can communicate and collaborate with other members of the community across multiple projects within the community, all in one place, which is our Discord server. The recording will be available in 24 hours or less, usually just a few hours, available on our YouTube channel, ak.ms/community/YouTube. You can go subscribe today, and that will let you know as soon as it's available. You can also go subscribe on all of the socials, so Twitter/X, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. We will shout from the rooftops on all of those. Thank you all for attending today. The next Power Platform Community Call is December 4th, 1 week from today. The next product updates from those Microsoft speakers is December 2nd, just next Tuesday. Thank you all for joining us today. Please have a wonderful rest of your week, wonderful weekend, and a long weekend for those in the States. Appreciate all that you're doing. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Gobble.
Gobble. Gobble. Gobble.
Gobble.